Nearly a month of Israeli bombardment of a slum that it helped create itself by continuing to push the Palestinians further and further towards the sea is creating an international furor which is unprecedented. Never before in the history of the world has the international population, the population of the world, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of language, been so much moved. This war has an emotive impact because so many women and children are being killed so graphically, and people are watching it. Unless Israel is stopped, this war is going to have long-term negative consequences for the global community. One of those consequences can possibly be the fact that the war on terror will have less credibility, will be delegitimized actually, because in the name of terror, Israel is killing women and children and calling Hamas a terrorist organization. So the West's narrative on terrorism will be now seen as a duplicitous narrative. And as a result of that, those states in the world who are genuinely faced with threats of terror will find it difficult to fight terrorists, because the terrorists will not only proliferate, they will have better sources of funding, they will ascribe legitimacy to their fight. That is possibly a long-term impact of this war unless it is stopped. The other thing that is happening is the fact that there's a lot of discussion now about the colonial legacy. And it may so happen that in due course, the very Balfour Declaration, the very legitimacy of the Balfour Declaration will start getting questioned inside not only the global community, but UK, the country that authored the Balfour Declaration. And so the legitimacy of Israel will come into question. And there will be renewed attention to whether or not anybody even has a right to establish a state in that manner. So that doesn't go well for Israel at all. The way Israeli generals are proceeding in this war, they're not helping their country. They're not helping their state. Every war has a political aspect to it. And all militaries try to minimize civilian casualties because they do not want their own state to be subjected to war crimes tribunals, to International Criminal Court. But the Israeli military does not seem to be caring here at all. And it seems like the Israeli generals are regressed. They are regressed back to 1948, when they were able to sweep through villages of Palestine, killing women, children, civilians, communities, unarmed people, and making those people flee the land. And thereby they were able to occupy the land and create the state of Palestine, create the state of Israel. They are trying to do the same thing in Gaza, it seems. They are bombing and frightening people so people would leave Gaza, and Gaza will be emptied out of all human beings, of all population. And when there is zero population, they will take over Gaza and make it a part of Israel. It can't be done now. It is not possible to repeat 1948 because, for one thing, in 1948 there was no information technology revolution in the world. There was no social media in the world. Media didn't operate this way, and the global power structure was very different. So this time, if they are trying to do it, they're obviously failing. We can also see how they are dividing not just the international opinion, which was previously favorable towards Israel. They are dividing the Jewish community itself. The way the Jewish community is being mobilized against this war has never happened before, because Jewish people are human beings, educated, modern, civilized human beings. So if you show them this kind of violence and you tell them we have to do it, this is our self-defense, they have to rise and say not in our name, and that's what they're doing. It is very important for these reasons, for the long-term impact of this war, that this war is stopped by the international community. This war is also delegitimizing the collective security regime. It is making it lose its credibility. And unless and until the collective security regime can find some mechanism to correct itself when it comes to the veto-wielding powers, who can allow this kind of brutality to perpetrate simply because they have the veto power at the Security Council, unless some mechanism can be found, the collective security regime itself seems quite doomed. It's very important that the generals who are planning this war be looked at as individuals who are even capable of carrying out the task. Here is in front of you a War History Online website. And there is a piece written by Andrew Knighton on this website which talks about the generals, famous generals in history who were actually mad. It talks about Sir William Erskine. It talks about the Marshal Liebrecht von Blücher. It talks about General Richard S. Ewell and General Haziandastasis, who was fighting the Turks in 1921, the Greek general, and even General Douglas MacArthur, and describes how each one of them had a medically certified mental illness while they were commanding the forces and commanding battles, and that their illnesses had impacts on their battles. This could be the case with the Israeli generals also. The way they are proceeding with the war, which is so counterproductive to their own political goals, is simply showing schizophrenia on their part, paranoia on their part. For instance, their insistence that all hospitals in Gaza are headquarters of Hamas. It is not possible for a guerrilla force to use a happening, bustling hospital as its headquarters, as its place of operation. Hospitals are full of people, especially during war. They have CCTV cameras. Guerrilla forces cannot operate inside a hospital. It does not suit their logistics to use a hospital, a facility like a hospital, as its place of military operation. They'll be caught immediately. Guerrillas obviously would like to use places out of the sight of general public, where they can in peace plan their battles. But the Israelis are insisting that hospitals are places where Hamas is operating. This shows a paranoia, it shows a schizophrenia, and it also shows that the Israeli generals may actually be harboring some kind of medical problem in their mind. They may be having a mental illness. It is necessary that the powerful states of the world, that their leaders try to get their hands on the medical records of these Israeli generals, because this war has so many long-term consequences for the global community. And if there is any mental illness documented in those medical records of these Israeli generals who are currently planning this battle, then the world community has to move to disarm Israel. And through some multilateral forum, through engagement of multilateral forum and leadership of the world, international leadership, design some sort of mechanism for a political solution, long-term political solution, sustainable political solution to the problem of Israel in the Middle East. Otherwise, Israel is massacring Muslims, families, communities, individuals, day after day after day for a long period of time in a region where it is surrounded by Muslim states left, right, and center. And by doing so, Israel is actually motivating all paramilitary groups, all militant organizations, to join hands together and go and help Hamas in fighting the IDF. And because the brutality perpetrated by the Israeli bombardment is so graphically being shown on the screens of the world, the states of the world who have contiguous borders, one border after another, contiguously the Muslim states of the world all around Israel, their governments will have less of an incentive in stopping these militant groups from crossing their territories to go into Israel, to go into Palestine, to go into Gaza, to fight against the Israeli forces there. And this would lead to the further empowerment of the militant groups, which could cause a long-term problem. So on the one hand, it is going to spearhead an anti-colonial movement to the extent that the Balfour Declaration itself will be questioned. The legitimacy of the Balfour Declaration will be questioned. It will be questioned even inside UK. We should remember that even the demographics of those states have changed over the years. We should be mindful of what kind of communities occupy these states who 75 years ago authored the Balfour Declaration and were sympathetic to the cause of the Jews having a country inside Middle East. So with all these things in mind, it is necessary that the international community moves to disarm the IDF and find a political solution to the problem of Israel in the Middle East. Otherwise, there will be very negative long-term consequences of this war. You're watching Zeenia Satti. I will be back with more commentary on this insane war.